Welcome to RealmIQ sessions, featuring conversations on AI with AI founders, AI leaders, and experts from around the globe covering the intersection of media, technology, Hollywood, and marketing. Please give us a follow and subscribe. This is our host, Curt Doty.
Hey, everybody. So I had some very interesting conversations with a gentleman named Joshua Otten. I call him Josh. And he's an amazing guy with over 2 decades of experience in media, IP monetization, emerging technology. He's worked with content producers, IP holders, celebrities, and creators to utilize technology, AI, and omni-channel distribution platforms in order to create interactive, scalable content experiences across digital, virtual, and connected TV ecosystems. That's one hell of a compound sentence, but I really feel he has the finger on the pulse of where this is all going. So let's get into it. Hey, Josh, how are you? Welcome to the show. Great to have you. What's going on, my friend?
Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here, Curt, and really excited to talk about the future of AI and media and technology and all that sort of fun stuff, and also cloud. Excited to be part of that.
Yeah. So, well, let's just talk about AI. And, you and I have similar paths as creatives, creative technologists, and, being in that space. And I just loved that we had so much synergy in terms of our past and where you've gone, where you're going with AI. So speak to me about your take on it as it relates to Hollywood. What's going on, the disruption, and what do you see as the solution?
Yeah. So, my first sort of real introduction into AI was maybe early for the sort of current phase we're in, but, certainly was not some sort of, developer doing this 10 years ago. But in 2021, we started to work with some content creators looking at how we could use different tools and solutions to, create more interactive solutions for fans. Obviously, most of the content creators and influencers are one to many. So you're creating content, you're broadcasting it, you're trying to reach millions of people. And then how do you have one-to-one interactions? And so we were looking around early in 2021 through 2022 and sort of work with some content creator. It wasn't until 2023 and really OpenAI came out and sort of opened the floodgates of the ability to utilize a lot of these systems through open source APIs and start to implement them into workflows that it started to explode. And so, certainly I've looked at it, I think in the same way, Curt, you look at it where it's a tool, and a tool is only going to be as strong as the person who knows how to use it. And so initially, like most technologies that come out, a couple of things happen in the media ecosystem. The first thing is established media ignores it or thinks it's a threat or doesn't really know how to implement it. So you've seen that with the music industry and Spotify and YouTube. You've seen it obviously with streaming where, Netflix is a tech first company, came out, a decade ahead of everyone else. And so I think AI is a similar it's having a similar path where I think it's a little more complex in that it's also directly impacting the artist or the creative side of the community. So whereas before, or in the early days of music streaming, a lot of artists were concerned because they weren't monetizing their content correctly. The reality is once the music industry sort of wrapped their hands around and UMG did big deals with Google and Spotify, they still weren't monetizing it correctly, but the people that wanted the control sort of regained some modicum of control over it. I think the major difference with AI is that not only is the cat out of the bag, but it's out of the bag, it's open source, it's exponentially getting better, and it's not something that can be ignored or sort of wished away. And so, I think the big existential crisis in media today is on the studio side. There's a lot of eagerness and excitement to implement these things, to make more content, potentially cheaper content. And this realistic fear by the creatives who work within the studio system that they're going to be cut out of it, right? Because they're already feeling the impacts of lower episode orders and decreased budgets. But I sort of look at it the other way, which is to say, instead of looking at it as a creative saying, oh, well, I'm going to be replaced by AI, let's replace the studio system. The reality is every single great writer, director, DP, actor I know has 10 amazing projects that have just been sitting on a shelf, not because they're not good, but because of 1,000 reasons they'll just never get made in the current Hollywood studio system. So imagine if you can make $100 million movie for $500,000 and the quality was there and you controlled it and you and your team and your partners owned 75% of that, as opposed to, 5 points on a mythical backend you'll never see. And you own the IP and you created the process. So,
Love that.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, it's tough. It's tough to monetize. It's tough to make money even on a gross, point basis when the studios own not only the distribution and the production, but they own all the marketing channels as well. And they're paying themselves back in first position for all of that stuff. So, but yeah, it's two ways. It's a double-edged sword. And so I think the one thing that people can't do is just sort of stick their head in the sand or wish it away or think that there's going to be some massive public outcry that's going to ban it or regulate it out of existence.
Well, yeah, regulations out the window at this point.
Right. Well, for this point, yeah, exactly. For the next couple of years.
Well, so I love the fact that you're seeing disruption, not only on the studio side, where you also see excitement, you see fear on the creator side, but you see it as an opportunity to disrupt the entire ecosystem, what is known as the studio distribution system. And so talk a little more about that, because I know you have some plans and certainly underlying technology that would enable that. And I don't think that's talked about enough. Right now, the conversation is around special effects. Netflix did this movie with one scene where AI was used and creating this furor. And it's like, okay, it's just like, so, tip of the iceberg. Let's talk about that distribution model and how that's going to change.
Absolutely. And I want to throw this out here too. I work within the reality of the world. So when I talk about these things, this isn't, like, it's kind of a side note, Curt, but, I believe that capitalism is currently constrained and built in this, specifically in America, has lost public benefit. And I don't think that's a good thing. I think that we are building things to build things' sake, to make wealth, to grow. Wall Street is focused on ever increasing profit margins. And so there's a lot of things that we're doing that don't have a public benefit outcome at all. It's not even, we can get into the granular where, like, you can't even think of public benefit when you run a C Corp that's a publicly traded corporation. You have to think of the shareholders and their stock buybacks. And so there's very sort of complex, sort of structure in the first place that has sort of led to where we are today. And so when I start to go down the path of, like, here's different ways we can do it, by no means am I sort of a tech absolutist who thinks this is all going to be good, right? I don't think the outcome is going to be 100% rosy, but I am I'm pragmatic,
Yeah.
and I look at things as they are and sit there and say, okay, well, again, what can we do? What can the creative community do within the reality of these tools coming out, these different platforms coming out, and how can they use that to their advantage? So that being said, yeah, I think it's fascinating. I mean, I have a small tech team, we're building a couple of different applications in the space. I look at what's happening on the AI platform side. And by that, I mean OpenAI and 11 Labs. And I mean, there's dozens at this point. And what I'm seeing happen is that it's commoditizing itself and it's almost sort of eating itself in real time. And by that, it's like, hey, here's this brand new model. Everyone declares this is dead. This is the new thing. And then 2 weeks later comes out. And I'll give you a quick example. We've been focusing on a bunch of different text to speech solutions, and we were using 11 Labs, and then Sesame came out. And so we put that in a server and started playing with that. And then I think I might be saying it right, but it's DIA or DIAS, I think is even now beating Sesame. And this is in a matter of months, maybe 6 to 12 weeks, not years. And the point is, not only are these systems coming out that are quote unquote better, and they are, I mean, they're objectively better than the previous solution, but they're open source. They're hosted on GitHub. You can host it on your own local server. You can pay for your own compute. And how do you compete with that if you're building a business around the tech side? You can hope to scale quickest. You can try to hope to buy out your competitors, but that market doesn't work anymore. The market of build something, build a little gate, build a walled ecosystem, SaaS it out, do special licensing deals. Those deals will be had. By no means is it going to limit access to the rest of the world to, similar solutions that may be even better than those. So I think the first fascinating thing is that if someone's sitting there building the next better mousetrap, text to video or photo to animation, whatever it's going to be, good luck to them. And I don't mean that to be, pithy or, sort of sound, like a dick, but yeah, I mean, good luck. Like it's in real time, we're seeing new solutions come out quicker and quicker. And I think the people that will win in the long term are the people that already have customers, audience, and distribution. Adobe, Google, all these, Apple, these places that already have users are going to ultimately win. So where does it leave everyone else? And I think that leaves the application layer of building on top of these things, and that leaves intellectual property or being creative.
Right. And I've always said that as there's this race, this exponential hockey stick of a race towards feature development, model development, right? That's what the tech leaders, big tech, are in the race for. Meanwhile, it's creative people and people with experience in their business verticals that are going to recognize, like yourself, the technology that's coming so fast. And how do we build new business models utilizing this technology and focus on that, not the next widget. It's about how to revolutionize new business models.
Yep.
And certainly Hollywood needs a new business model because it's not working.
Well, though, I think the one thing everyone can agree, is that it's broken, right? The current Hollywood system is broken. You could talk to writers, directors, you could talk to studio executives. So that's the one thing. So I don't think AI can necessarily break it further in the way, and when I say that, I mean, it's going to disrupt it and change it, but I don't know if I think there are better possible economic outcomes for the creative community with AI than without it. I think it's possible. It's not definitive, but it's possible. As far as where we are today, I read something funny on X. Can you still call them tweets? I don't know. They're posts, whatever they are.
I'm
somewhat.
I left.
Yeah. Well, I'm there and I'm sort of watching, and it's this, people call it AI content slop, but the idea is there's these prompt engineers who are creating content for content's sake, or not even creating it for content's sake, they're creating it for engagement's sake. And so someone pointed out that, like, look, that's not who's going to win. Like, the person who's using, Midjourney to create a really cool 7-second loop of a Nike turning into a shoe, or the vice versa. Yeah, that's cool. But like, what are we doing here? Right? Like, that's not, like, you're not going to get a job creating that, and you're not going to work for Nike creating that. And you're not going to be able to monetize it because you don't own the trademark or the logos. That's where they're farming engagement, which we understand. But again, this is where there's a big disconnect between the storytellers, the great storytellers who understand the craft and the medium of storytelling across multiple different, whether it's animation, live action, print, whatever, and the people who are currently just completely adopting the use of the AI tools. And so I think that's a great opportunity. If I'm a creative person, I'm going to be looking at these tools saying, well, wait a second, I'm a better storyteller than all these guys, right? 90% of the people that are creating content don't know how to storytell. And I have that strategic advantage. So the only thing I'm lacking is understanding how to use these tools. And the good news is these tools are so simple to use to a certain degree that you don't really have to code to use them. That's the kind of the value proposition. You don't have to be some tech genius. I mean, there are people who
vibe code.
Yeah, exactly. Well, vibe coding is a whole other problem, because people vibe code an application and then their user list gets ripped off and they get hacked within 5 minutes. But the idea is, yeah, you could definitely implement some stuff. So I think, I think where I'm seeing is, like, I've had some really great meetings, with various different artists and I was at a dinner, and I happened to talk with the cinematographer, John Schwartzman, and you and I both know Tim Tennant really well. And I had a meeting with his brother, Andy Tennant, who's a great director. And I just had a meeting with the writer, and, just a bunch of friends of mine. And again, their first instinct was just, oh, this is a bad thing. We already just went on strike. I've heard this is bad. Don't worry. Our unions are going to squash it. Yeah, sure. Good luck. And this is bad. And so then I was like, hey, check this out. look at, first of all, what the output is, number one. Number two, how many projects are you schlepping around right now trying to get made? And of those projects you're trying to get made, how many of them will never get made?
Right.
And on top of that, what is that process like? How long does it take you to make an amazing movie, by the way? How long does it take you to make a Hitch or Sweet Home Alabama or some of these writers and you might get it, if you're really, really,
More.
what's that?
They don't
What?
make movies anymore.
Well, they don't even make those, right?
They
That's that,
Netflix and Homer.
right. Those aren't even made, true. But pretending they were made, even in the best of days, you're getting one every couple years, 3 years. And then even the best DPs are working once a year, maybe. So my point is, it's like, imagine if you could go out and you could spend the next 3 years making your 4 passion projects and not really worry about who's going to finance it and who's going to distribute and all those other things. And number two, bring your DP on board. You can use live action. AI can be a post effects. AI doesn't have to replace everyone. You can still use real voices. And that gets into another challenge, which we talked about, Curt, which is copyright in the age of AI, right? How do you respect existing copyright, and how do you create new copyrights using AI tools? But I think that, again, that initial conversation has started to turn people's thoughts around. And I've seen a really interesting leaning in now of like, actually, I'm interested. I want to learn more.
That's great. Well, you speak to storytellers and you speak to bringing in your crew, your posse, and that is about collaboration. And the main difference between these YouTube and LinkedIn influencers who are just putting up the AI slop, they're not collaborating, but they're just doing what they can with what they know, what they're learning. That's cool. It lives for, 7 seconds on the internet and then dies, quick death. But this idea of collaborative AI production, using experts who have decades of experience of the craft of filmmaking. It is a craft. Okay. And those people who have that eye, that discerning taste and track record of creating fantastic stories, those are the people I am most interested in seeing what they're going to do with the technology, because it's those people that will take AI to the next level and get us out of this sea of sameness, this AI slop. And wow, what a future that could be.
I agree. I mean, I think collaboration is, all great stories have are collaborative in nature, whether it's, a writer plus a director or working with DPs, working with actors. I mean, that's how you get the best creative content. And so, will in 5 years from now, someone, quote unquote, prompt code or vibe code out a feature film by themselves sitting in their parents' basement, not to be disparaging, but whatever, sitting in their basement or whatever. But the point is, will someone one-on-one use these? Absolutely. I think in 5 to 10 years, there's going to be somebody who's going to make a movie individually, doing everything, voice, acting, all this stuff, and it'll be this big sort of thing. Is that the future? Absolutely not. I mean, again, it's no different than, when people first started using digital to make films, and everyone was like, no, I'm never going to shoot digital. I'm only going to be feature. And then someone made something on digital and it did well. Again, it's not that everything then had to be digital or everything then had to be filmed. There was success there, but it's just, again, it's at that point, it was a medium. So I think in general, collaboration is going to be key. And I would also say there's a great opportunity where there's a lot of lack of work for people in certain departments in Hollywood, whether it's below the line, grips, key grips, gappers, people who had steady work, because not only is not as, there's just not that much work happening right now in LA specifically, or in the States. And so now's a great time to learn a craft that you can learn and then become an expert in something. Because the reality is, I don't think some of the best writers or best DPs or best directors are going to bother necessarily learning how to prompt. They're just going to want to work with someone who knows how to use these tools, right? So this is a great opportunity to say, you know what, like, let me, they're automating. The Model T Ford has now been automated. What used to take, 10 people to build a car is now one person, a robot. It's less about like, let's build the robot that's going to replace me. It's more just about like, hey, let's start using these tools to, again, get power of content creation in the hands of the filmmakers. And when I talk about a team, I mean a team, like literally, I was talking to my buddy who's a producer and a location scout, and he's always running around. And I'm like, This doesn't mean the death of location scouts. This means you as a location scout are going to start to use these tools to make sure that when you're creating environments, whether it's in a post process or to completely replicate it in AI, they have certain qualities that are one-to-one with the original, right? Because you are an expert in those locations and you can do all these things. And so now you're still a department head who's working with the team to make sure the locations in an AI workflow still look well. And I think again, it, there has to be an understanding that also part of the teamwork initiative is public benefit, meaning we as society do better when we're working together, when we're working on projects together. I don't see how society's benefited when Microsoft is firing 6,000 to 9,000 people a quarter, other than, BlackRock and some of the shareholders who are, looking for stronger stock buybacks and more growth and, demanding those things. I think those 6,000 people go home and they have to lay off people in their community who work with their kids or take their kids out. I mean, it's a really sad sort of domino that's happening, and that's going to absolutely increase. But the flip side to that is we as society can also demand that, there's public benefits in some of these tools. Just, we can't expect that the large corporations are going to willingly take that along. They're not going to willingly do anything except extract as much profit as possible. So it is up to us to sort of take these tools and sort of rein them in and figure out how to use them.
Okay, we're taking a break. Let's hear from our sponsors.
Visla is a great AI tool. I use it every day. It is the faster, easier, and better way to record your screens and make content. Get a discount by entering Curt15. Go to visla.us or scan the QR code. Speechify is a really cool app. It is an AI voice generator. It does AI voice dubbing and AI voice cloning. Go to speechify.com or scan the QR code. Strikingly is the most loved website and e-commerce builder by entrepreneurs. It is easy to use, and they have launched 12 plus million websites and online stores and counting. Go to strikingly.com or scan the QR code.
And we're back. Yeah, look to, was it the UAE that made ChatGPT available to everyone in the country?
Right.
It's a radical move. It's not tied to universal basic income. It's about access, right? And then let them figure out what to do. And I will add that, Hollywood has always been scrappy in terms of creating products, creating stories, creating teams, creating your posse, moving from film to film to film throughout people's careers. And that spirit of collaboration and teamwork and really what is 100 years old tradition of entrepreneurship, people wanting to get their story heard and then making it happen with this team that, you can build. I think that spirit is what's going to propel the format, the technology that goes against what's happening in big tech as they're developing features, right? And trying to monetize it. Meanwhile, hey, let's talk about story, right?
Right.
Let's talk about making. Let's talk about how do we disrupt and, reinvent, reimagine what has been a very old studio system.
Well, Curt, here's interesting about technology, right? So the cost of spinning up a CTV subscription video on demand service, which, 10 years ago was so costly that a lot of the major studios didn't do it. And then when they started getting into it, I think it was Viacom bought Pluto TV for $380 million, right? You could spin a really powerful, I'm working right now with the team and a company called 24i, and I think they power some really powerful, I can't say names that I'm under NDA, but you could Google 24i and see what they do. They do some really big, well-known media platforms online, and there's a cost to it, but it's not millions of dollars. So my point is, what's to stop 20 of the biggest directors and writers in Hollywood who can take each of them 3 of their best projects and put them together and raise $100 million so they're making one movie, make 20 or 30 movies,
Yeah.
and then put together an exclusive distribution network, but do everything super cost effective where, majority of the money's going on the screen, and then they own the IP forever. They're not having to sell it to Netflix. And now you're competing. I mean, you know, I know it sounds kind of like, oh, it's just easy, but it's easier than it ever was to do those things. And technology is commoditizing itself. I mean, I used to have a company back in the day where we would buy short codes, which were like text pizza to 65656, right? And
Right.
so you buy the short code and you would own all the keywords. Then you would sell the keywords almost like you would sell a website. Hey, I'm going to sell you pizza and you're going to pay me this much a month. And for everyone that texts pizza, I'm going to drive that person to you and you could talk to them. And I'm also going to charge you 2 cents per message and I'm paying a penny and yada, yada. Well, that entire business lasted, I don't know, 24, 36 months until,
Yeah. That and
everything became free and iMessage and
company ringtones. Remember that?
ringtone, or then the ring back, all these things, right? And so what ended up happening was these things became ubiquitously integrated into whatever, you didn't have to pay for messages anymore, or text, or Yelp took over, whatever it is. But I think the reality is AI is not going anywhere, but they're moving into a token-based ecosystem. And what that really means is that the only ones that are going to be able to compete are providing services at scale to the billions, and they're monetizing compute. That's it. I mean, whatever their output is, however cool and sexy it looks or fun it looks, it's just they're monetizing transactions. And those transactions can create a sound, or it can create a voice, or it can create a message, or it can create a video, or create a fixture. But they're essentially, it's costing them $5 and they're trying to charge 10. And I don't want to be in that business. I tried to run those businesses before, and they're just a race to the bottom. And the flip side to it is, how do you compete in that business when there's competitors who are not only doing what you do, but doing it probably better, cheaper? And again, it's open source and you have everything on GitHub. So I look at that like, if I had to pick a lane to be in today and someone gave me, hey, Josh, here's $100 million. What are you going to do with it? I'm not going to create a competitor to VEO3 or 11 Labs or InWorld or any of these platforms. I'm going to create IP, great IP and storytelling, but implement all of these things and swap them out to use the best, sort of processes, workflows, and technology solutions to get the output that is going to work the best for whatever the creative team wants to work with. Because you own that forever. Disney may not own all of Epic or Unreal or Meta or these things, but they own Darth Vader, and they're going to be able to put Darth Vader in any environment that comes in and controls it, and they're going to monetize it. And so they can afford to be a little lazy, right? They can afford to sort of sit back and be like, hey, we'll see what else comes out. We'll let the world test it. Because we know at the end of the day, our IP is going to have a place there and it's going to monetize there, and we get to dictate those terms. And the only way you can compete with that is create your own IP.
Yeah.
Which goes into the next challenge that we talked about, Curt, which is copyrights in the age of AI, right?
Yeah. How do you own a IP? And also you mentioned story worlds. I think play isn't just for the movie screens. It's also for video games and, enhanced experiences in retail and, all kinds of different ways to connect with and engage with consumers, that it isn't just about TV. It isn't just about movies anymore. It's about moving your IP across all different types of what they used to call transmedia.
Transmedia. Right? Yeah, exactly. That transmedia was a fancy word for just saying we'll distribute the same product everywhere. Yeah, I think in third, and again, I'm throwing, it could be 10 years, but I think certainly in the next 25 to 30 years, that whether that's Generation Alpha or whatever comes after them, they're going to look back at the fact that people sat there and stared passively at their screens to consume content as bizarre and archaic as probably this generation looks at records, right? Like, sure, it's like if it's not interactive, if it's not personalized, if it doesn't have some way for you to not even control, but just interact in a more game-like experience, I don't think it's going to be around that long. There will always be people that will watch television passively and or screens passively, whatever that content is, whether it's short form or influencer or anything like that. But I think interactivity is going to be, and however that's defined, but the idea that as an individual, I can connect much more deeply and personalize that experience is absolutely going to have to be a part of the future of content versus, and again, I think this idea that everyone's going to sit there, what really, you just sat there and stared at this picture on the wall for 3 or 4 hours at a time watching 90 Day Fiance? Yes, I did. It was you have no idea how fun it was. And then furthermore, so when you go to the copyright, I'll give you another sort of fun X exchange I watched where this person was starting to complain because all of this content they were creating, on Midjourney and VEO3 and everything else, someone pointed out that it's public domain content. And they were really upset because what do you mean? I'm doing all this work and I'm prompting it, and it's, never mind that like 90% of what's that?
For no apparent reason.
Right. And never mind that, by the way, 90% of it is like filled with brands and logos and IP that they trademarks. They have no idea that they don't own. And then you go back to this person's tweets, and the same person was basically talking about how people who create content shouldn't complain that AI is training on it. So it's like, okay, you don't care about copyright protection for all the work that was created to train the machine that's now outputting something that you also can't copyright. And so, the irony, of course, was lost on this human. But yeah, the bottom line is you can't, anything you create using pure AI generative solutions is public domain. It is what it is. I mean, there's no argument to be had. I mean, the courts have been, they've been fairly consistent these days on a couple things. One is if you can legally obtain content, you could train on it for the most part. If you're illegally obtaining content, like Meta bragging about the fact that they basically ripped and torrented a bunch of stuff, then you can't, there's going to be a price paid for that, but it'll be probably so insignificant they won't care. But the outputs, number one, by itself cannot be copywritten or trademarked if all you're using is AI generative solutions. And if the outputs infringe, they can be sued or challenged, meaning if I create something using AI generative, not only do I not own that necessarily, I mean, that's public domain, but I can also be potentially sued because if I'm using stormtroopers or Nike logos and all this other stuff, I'm infringing. So there's just a whole bunch of unknowns that haven't been answered. One of the things that we're working on is to develop workflows that ensure, number one, the output can be copywritten. So if I'm building a movie or a TV series or a short film or whatever it is, working on a brand ad, then the end result of that thing can be trademarked and copywritten and protected. And then number two, that output also isn't infringing. And so that's a big piece of our workflow to make sure that that'll stand up to, as currently, the courts are currently sort of outlining what those rules are.
Right. And do you think that hybridization plays into that and the percentage game?
It has to.
Right.
Yeah. So what's interesting is these laws by nature are actually incentivized to promote this collaboration we talked about earlier. So if I'm creative, I'm actually going to use these laws to my advantage and create a strategic advantage that the solo vibe coding prompt engineer filmmaker will never be able to compete with. Right. Because he is going to have to rely so heavily on AI generative solutions to storytell that he's going to run up into real problems protecting the work he creates.
Right.
Whereas someone who's already working with a team of real humans and they're using these things as a tool and a part of the process are going to have complete copyright protection at the end product. And that could mean that even
they'll have a 10-year-old screenplay that's
exactly
copyrighted and protected by the WGA, and then they're going to bring that into the equation, and there's going to be live action footage and live action actors, and they own their likenesses, right?
Yep.
And so it seems like the more complex approach and the more hybrid approach that you use, the more protections you have in terms of owning your IP on the output, because you can say and go back through the process. It's like, oh, this screenplay existed 10 years ago. These are real actors, and we used real musicians, but we sampled a few things to round out the score. And you're just showing you're using these tools to like make a more efficient filmmaking process. But the IP, the story, the characters, the actors, they own their shit.
Right. Exactly. Well, I'll give you a great example. There was someone who was promoting a new music platform, and they were promoting the fact that, and they, I had paraphrasing, but basically you don't have to worry about stealing music anymore because you can just steal it. You can just upload the original song, tell this thing what you want to create and keep, and then he'll create it. And I'm thinking to myself, that's insane. Because first of all, that's totally not true. Musicians get sued all the time for theft of other musicians' work, whether it's sampling a beat or, whatever. I mean, it's like, it's very nuanced, but the idea the idea that AI is transforming the original thing into an output, the transformation in and of itself doesn't make the new thing free from infringement claims. Number one. Number two, okay, let's just say you have cleared that hurdle. The music you just created is also public domain. So what does the world look like when we're vibe making music, ripping off everyone else, throwing it up there, and then 50 different people are uploading that same track every hour because no one can claim authority or ownership over it because you just made it through AI. So I think these things are going to figure themselves out. And I think actually this existing copyright law, trademark law, how it's interpreted is very advantageous for the world. There's public benefit there. And again, because it will sort of automatically incentivize people to work collaboratively. It'll de-incentivize people to just quote unquote rip things off or steal them or use them, because ultimately those things won't be able to be monetized or protected, even if you do get away with infringement issues. And number three, we're already seeing it happen in real time with, I think it's Google and YouTube started to demonetize channels that are overtly using AI.
Yeah.
Now, of course, they'll probably re-monetize it 3 months from now when you can one-click put VEO3 content into your workflows through Google. I'm sure they're going to integrate the stuff, but the reality is I think even they understand it doesn't benefit their ecosystem to just flood the lane with a ton of disposable, just AI slop, right? And so it is fun to see. I am fascinated with it. I mean, I could spend 30 minutes just scrolling through Midjourney's Explore Video tab. I mean, some of the stuff that's created is absolutely gorgeous and compelling and visually stunning. And then after a while, you're kind of like, okay, next.
Well, yeah, you got to get to the one frame you upload, and then it takes that one frame and then does an amazing thing for 5 or 7 seconds. And
right.
1080p, and it is amazing, and it will only get better. And they don't even have any storyboard features yet, like other platforms. Like Runway. Speaking of Runway, I've been tracking them and their AI festivals, of which they're in their 3rd year. They had over 6,000 entries this past year, which shows this appetite to create AI films wherever you are in the world.
Yep.
Yes, you could be the guy in the basement in Pacoima or in the battlefield in Kyiv. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
People want to do it. And so, and you're helping me here, but I've developed this AI film festival called CLOWD. And we
very excited.
Soft launched with our, sign up and get on the wait list. And you thankfully have agreed to be a judge. And
thank you for the offer. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah. And the idea, when I was reading the terms and conditions in the Runway AI Film Festival, talking about IP, they said you have to create it on Runway if you're going to enter their film competition. And they say they own it once you submit it, which is ironic because you can't own anything.
Right. What are they owning? They own public domain content. Okay, sure. Whatever that means.
So it's crazy. So big tech and the big leaders in all this aren't doing things ethically, as we know. So the whole notion behind CLOWD is to try to do it ethically and promote a hybrid model, and also use qualified judges who know what they're looking at and know this whole aspect of storytelling, and then crowdsource the voting.
Yeah, I love that.
Because these things are insanely popular. I mean, I have a friends here at Con who's, gets millions of hits on his AI films on YouTube. And of course, people grab keyframes from his films and then make their own films and off that. But the fact is there's a rabid appetite to consume the content as well. Even though it's AI slop, some of it is actually pretty good. So tapping into that hunger to create, tapping into that hunger to consume, I believe that CLOWD is a festival that can really do things right, innovate for good. And that's the whole idea. And I'm glad you're participating because you're a big part of that equation.
Well, thanks. No, I appreciate that, Curt. And I agree. I think it's necessary and the timing's great. The idea that you would have a platform specific festival or anything I mean, it's just the antithesis of not just filmmaking, but content creation in general, and certainly not going to be the most effective way to make content, right? You want to be able to pick and choose the tools you use based on really the output or the type of content you want to create. Now, I get it. For Runway, it's like their purpose is as a marketing system to show how great their platform is, but that's not to the public benefit of the creative community and to the consumer. What I love about your vision, Curt, is number one, it's just getting the best content out there. Like, what is the best storytelling? And we could have sort of interesting things like best visuals, and you can have sort of categories that sort of, allow unique ways to do things to sort of be rewarded or sort of applauded. But in general, it goes back to storytelling and being collaborative. And, look, I'll post stuff on AI every once in a while on LinkedIn, and I have a very healthy discourse of people that are very supportive and people who think it's, not me necessarily, but certainly that the idea of AI is sort of this of a platform. And again, I'm trying to really sit there and say, hey guys, like let's use this as a tool to create great content. And that content needs a platform like CLOWD which is CLOWD, because it is important, right? Film festivals are a great way for marketing. They're sort of a great tool and a great way to, create and make things valid, I guess. I'm not saying it the right way, but
Yeah.
South by Southwest, Tribeca, all these great festivals were always sort of part of your, not just marketing, but creating a validation on the quality of the content. And so I think having where we're in the middle of this sort of like AI fear, and is it bad? Is it good? It's like, hey, this is a home for people who are part of the creative community to start playing with these tools and adopt it and utilize it. And then also have a home where that could be, shared and adored and engaged with.
Yeah. And just lastly about CLOWD, I also want to show these fantastic films in a big theater, get them off YouTube, get them off the Netflix. It's like, no, there's the real test. These people sitting in a theater seat, watching short films made in a majority way with AI tools and not in a hotel ballroom somewhere. The country.
I love it.
Yeah, kind of elevating that experience to have a Hollywood impact versus just looking at YouTube. And, let's see, let's really test it out. Let's look at it on the big screen, and more than likely it'll work fantastic.
Absolutely.
Resolution is such that you can't even tell. And so let's put it on the big screen. That's the ultimate test. Oh, you want to be an AI filmmaker for YouTube, or you want to see your stuff on the big screen? Let's put it on the big screen.
And also, I think, again, it's a great chance for people to collaborate. What did you do? That's really cool. How did you get this shot? How are you getting this? It's like there's so many different ways to do it. John Finger, who's kind of created a really cool career, and I think he's at Luma Labs right now. He's really focused on sort of AI as a layover or a post-process of real acting, which I love because, he's much more interested from the work that I've seen him share with keeping real people engaged and not replacing everyone, but using this as an enhanced way to storytell. And I think that's really cool. And so I'm excited to see people use that because that brings that collaboration with real actors, real writers, DPs, directors, and the ability to, turn, someone into a 6'5" alien, with the push of a button that looks great and is real, but the base of that acting is a real human. So you're getting real quality acting out of that now, AI enhanced alien creature.
Interpolation of real human movement.
That's right.
And acting. Yeah. Cool. So we're getting towards the end of our podcast. Anything you want to plug or promote, or how can people find you? What's your website? All that good stuff.
Yeah. So I'm terrible at LinkedIn, but I do try and post once or twice a month. So sorry about that. I'll try to get better. We have a website that's mostly in transition, but the company's called Likeness Labs. You can certainly drop in on LinkedIn if you want, or you can email me at joshua.o@likenesslabs.ai. The website's likeduslives.ai. The website is not indicative of what we do. It is what it is. We have something up there. I would say, unfortunately, a lot of the stuff we do is kind of a little bit behind closed doors right now. We work a lot with NDAs. We've done a lot of interesting things. We've created, we're working a lot with what are AI game hybrids. So like game engines like Unreal 5 with AI plugins. And, there's a lot of interesting things you can do visually that's much more cost effective to scale. So our team's been working in Unreal for a couple of years now. We're also doing a lot of just pure play AI and AI generative solutions for content creators. We're starting to get really heavy into this film studio process. So talking to some people in that space to, again, this idea of being, it's like a United Artists, right? That back in the day would have wanted to be. It's like how Charlie Chaplin, everyone got together where it's like, hey, artists first, let's shift the paradigm. If I'm an investor and I invest $2 million into an indie film that looks like a $2 million indie film, and God blesses indie films, because there would be no Tarantino and Rodriguez, there would be no amazing filmmakers and Lynch without that access to the capital and that support of the small indie film. But, the reality is, you can now make, and again, it's a work in progress, but you can make big looking features with the right team and the right post process and the right workflows. And so, that's something else I'm working on with the team to bring that to fruition. So, and I think it'll fit perfectly into cloud, which is why I'm really excited to be a judge, because my goal would be to start to find high quality filmmakers, pair them with people who are technology first, pair them with people that are creative first. And that's a win-win. The technology person who knows how to use the tools the best, great avid editors still need directors and actors and writers and things to sort of help them be part of that process. So I see it the same way.
Awesome. Well, it sounds exciting. Thanks so much. And thanks to all of you for tuning in, and catch more of our RealmIQ sessions on your favorite podcast platforms. And please follow and smash that freaking subscribe button. You can also follow us on TikTok, LinkedIn, and now Blue Sky. So thanks again, Josh. Take care. Good luck with everything.
Thanks, brother.
RealmIQ. Transform your business with AI-driven innovation.
Welcome to CLOWD, the next frontier of cinematic innovation. The AI Film Festival that respects your intellectual property, integrates crowdsourced voting, has qualified final judges, and is run by indie film festival experts. CLOWD is a groundbreaking initiative designed to showcase AI-driven narratives, nurture a global community of AI video creators, and establish AI filmmaking as a new art form in the creative arts. This festival will highlight not only films made with AI tools, but also explore the ethical implications, creative potential, and future of AI-powered storytelling. Through panel discussions, competitions, and exclusive screenings, the festival will provide a platform for creators to showcase their work, engage with industry leaders, and inspire audiences with the possibilities of AI in film. What makes us unique is that we are platform agnostic. We offer a showcase and directory for AI filmmakers. We are ethically run. We feature a nationwide tour of the finalists after the festival, and have built a platform for ongoing brand competitions. There isn't a better time to embrace the next frontier of cinematic innovation. Go to our site at cloudfilmfest.com.
Subscribe to our Media Slam newsletter and learn more about the intersection of design, content, and technology.
CurtDoty.co. Branding, marketing, and product development.